Diksha Sharma, and I will be your moderator for today's session. A very warm welcome to Ask Me Anything with Rajat Saxena. This would be an interactive session, so it will be very great if you all be active in the question answer session. You guys can see a Q&A section there. Please give me a thumbs up or a yes if you can access it. Okay. Tanuj Kumar, Vivek, Krishma. Okay, I can see your yes. Hope everyone is able to access the Q&A section. So as the name suggests, our today's session is meant for all your doubts. You can ask anything regarding hash code or regarding programming in general. But before we begin, I would like to take a minute to introduce you all to our society. Hack Overflow is a recognized society by our own Chandigarh University, which is one of the top universities of North India with NAC A+ accreditation. Our society is well known for its annual hackathons known as Hack Overflow. We also organize various other events for technical as well as non-technical domain students. And one such event is going on, that is Hashcode 2022. Many of you might be aware that Hashcode is a team competition organized by Google for students and professionals all around the world. What you have to do is pick a programming language, pick a team, and solve an engineering problem. For this year, the qualification round, that is the virtual round, is on 24th February 2022. Just a week from today, and I'm sure all the participants might be ready with their preparation. Well, I'm sure all of you are curious about coding, so it is not a secret for you that Hashcode is an amazing opportunity that provides you a platform to fight and show your love for programming. For you that our society organizes Hashcode for Chandigarh University's virtual hub and try to help you in whatever manner possible. Last year in Hashcode, we successfully secured 3rd position nationally and 7th position globally. Coming back to our today's session, don't worry if you feel restless about not knowing enough or if you have a list of queries. We have invited a wonderful expert to help you out with all your queries. Our today's guest is currently a software engineer at Facebook, London. Prior to this, he was a software engineer at Booking.com in Amsterdam for 3 years. Moreover, Sir has also been involved in mentoring and coaching college students for their professional career. He's really a bunch of knowledge. It is truly an honor to have such a delightful person with us. Welcome, Rajat Saxena, sir. We are delighted to have you.
Thank you, Diksha. Pleasure to be here with the students of Chandigarh University. I've heard a lot about this college and have an opportunity to meet some wonderful alumni of this college as well. So yeah, very happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. All of us have questions from you regarding programming actually. So shall we start with the question answer session?
Sure, of course, yeah.
Okay, sir. So our first question is, as you are a software engineer, how and when did you started your coding journey?
Interesting. So I started my university days in 2013 from DTU, and it's probably after the first semester break, winters, that I got to know about programming, competitive programming, and I got to know about some websites like CodeChef. Spoj was a big thing at that time, and that was the period when I started learning about algorithms, data structures, and what does it require to do some sort of algorithmic problem solving on these platforms. Thankfully, I had a very good coaching environment in our university that helped a lot. Like, our seniors were a lot more proactive in helping us getting onboarded with this journey. So yeah, I think typically around beginning of my second semester, back in 2014 was the time when I started my coding journey.
Okay, sir, that was very nice answer. I hope most of us would learn from it as well. So you are currently working at Facebook, which is the dream company of many of the students here. So can you please share your journey from a DTU graduate to a professional working at Facebook?
Yeah, that's a long journey though. As I said, like I was most of my second and third year in my college, I was involved in some sort of algorithmic programming. I was participating in some contests and doing stuff like that. I did my internship at Amazon in the Hyderabad campus in 2016, after which I was given a PPO, like pre-placement offer after my internship ended. But I wanted to explore something outside. So I started giving some random, I started applying to some random companies in my fourth year, just to explore what's out there. And thankfully, Booking was something that was hiring at that time. And I had my interviews there, which spanned again some design rounds, some coding rounds, and some behavior rounds. And yeah, I took a leap and decided to move to Amsterdam in 2017.
Internship ended.
There, I
But I wanted to
was
explore some.
kind of
Yeah, I
working
took a
mostly
leap
on
and decided
in the
to move
security
to
department
Amsterdam
on fraud
in
prevention,
2017.
with a
Internship
lot
ended.
of mostly working with machine learning based software technologies to prevent fraud attacks. There was there for around 3 years, after which I decided to think about something else and got reached out from a recruiter who was hiring for Facebook's London office. And yes, I applied there. And then the series of interviews, system design, coding, manager rounds, and everything. And yeah, I was moved here after that.
A long journey, and this also takes a very long hard work in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, of course, that's true.
Sir, have you ever participated in competitions like hash code or anything like this? And what do you think should be the strategy to prepare for them?
I haven't participated in hash code. It's probably a new thing after I graduated from my college. Back then, Google's Code Jam, Facebook's Hacker Cup, and of course the ACM ICPC. These three were the big beats when I was in university, and I did not participate later on. So when I heard about hash code, I was like, okay, this is something new. So I can give some I can share some experience from Google Code Jam and ACM ICPC. So I used to participate with some of my friends. Again, those were also, I think ACM ICPC was a team-based contest. However, Hacker Cup and Code Jam was more of individual contest. And there, I think a lot more. I think ACM
Efforts
ICPC
were
was
in
a
a
team-based
fast-paced competitive
contest
programming.
rather
However,
than core researchers and algorithms. So the experience there was actually quite fun. There's a steep learning curve with a lot of people because there are so many new algorithms out there about combinatorics, probability, dynamic programming, graph structures, and everything that you don't necessarily learn during your academics and even for your interviews preparation and things like that. But it's actually quite a good sport. I usually take it as a sport and not just a competition because that helps you get in the momentum of teamwork, that you basically form a team where certain person has certain skills. Someone types code very fast, someone can come up with good test cases, corner cases, so that you do not have a lot of false attempts while submitting the code, and someone is just really good in coming up with solutions. So it's a very good team exercise, quite fun overall.
Okay, so like participating in these competitions help us to explore outside what we generally don't do while practicing. Thank you so much for this information, sir.
Yeah.
And also, like how to crack, like students who want to crack the FANG interview, what should be a roadmap for their preparation?
So that depends. I mean, I think I can since this webinar is at for the universities, I can talk mostly around the university level students. I think Fang, or let's say it's Mang these days because Facebook changed to Meta. uh, I think the roadmap is nothing very different, right? It just requires maybe 3 to 4 things that someone needs to take into account. One, probably have a good resume so that you get shortlisted for interviews quickly, because that's the first step before you can do any sort of interviews, just get selected for the interviews in the first place. And the recruiters, from my experience in working with Amazon, knowing people in Google, and working in Facebook, is that they look some sort of if you see, like, there are thousands of people not only from India but also from abroad who are applying for these companies. So they really need to see something that shines out in your resume. That could be, some nice research internship, or some internship in a particular domain, a research paper that you got published, or GSOC, any open source contribution that you have been doing. There must be something that shines out and that catches the eye of the recruiter so that they can forward your application. So that's one thing I think which students need to maintain, and if possible in a consistent manner, so that they can crack through at least the screening phase of the recruiters. um, and once that happens, I think it mostly depends on your preparation. I don't think companies like Google, Facebook, they ask a lot of difficult questions. So it's a lot of, the preparation style should be very different from the rest of the companies. However, they always ask very open-ended questions. And someone who is tackling these interviews should not just be good in data structures and algorithms, but also in problem solving and problem exploration. They will just give you a problem that you have to think what algorithm should be applied, or what data structure can this be fit in very well. So it's kind of very open-ended and vague. And if your preparation has been really strong, if your fundamentals about DS and algo has been really crisp, and you have practiced enough things, then it's very easy to know about the problem and solve it. And the last thing I think which a lot of companies care about, including FAN, is the communication part. I know a lot of people would probably just be silent and coding and then thinking in their head. And especially in these times of pandemic where most of the interviews are online, this creates a big communication gap among the interviewer and the interviewees. And this is where a lot of people get rejected. I mean, I have seen myself very, very smart people getting rejected just because they were not very communicative in the interviews. So this is something I think which people should work on, and doing mock interviews, helping out each other, conducting some dummy interviews is usually a good technique to overcome this hurdle of communication gap. So yeah, I think if you keep these 3-4 things in mind, FANG should be relatively straightforward.
Okay, so this was the strategy to crack bank.
Well, if you simplify it, yes. And of course, I think hard work doesn't go. I mean, you can't take hard work for granted. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of hours put in to understand different concepts, and not only understand but also practice them enough so that you come to this technique of not missing any corner case in while you're writing code, or if you're being effortless when you're producing something. So that if these times of practice and these times of really going in depth about something really pays off when you interviews for these companies.
Okay. Yes, along with hard work, we also have to work smarter
Yeah.
and practice things out. Okay, thank you so much, sir. One of the questions from the audience is, what type of questions are asked in interview for software field?
What type of questions? So I said usually the interviews would be mostly around 3 things. One is coding. So depending on the type of companies, let's say Google or DirectType for that matter, their interviews are quite heavy on dynamic programming and graphs. So and if you are good in competitive programming, you are participating in hash code, ICPC contests and stuff like that, you are kind of in the zone of handling those type of questions. However, let's say other companies like Amazon or Microsoft, they probably won't touch upon a lot of difficult areas. Their questions would mostly be around, let's say, strings, tries, matrices, arrays, linked lists, trees, some trivial data structures, yeah, which are quite large in numbers. So there's a lot of breadth of topics you need to cover. But then a lot of knowledge is around on internet for it anyways. So these type of coding questions are definitely asked. I know some companies will ask some low level design questions as well, where you'll be asked to design, let's say, a game of chess or a parking lot. These are some common examples. And if you are familiar with object-oriented programming, you can come up with some classes and define relationships between classes and try to simulate what something like that would look like, a game of chess, a deck of cards, something along those lines. And finally, there are behavior interviews everywhere where people would probably want to gauge how good is it to work with someone like you. And they would try to ask questions about the projects that you have done, the previous internships that you have done, what were the learnings, what were the challenges, what is something you want to change about yourself. Like they just want to gauge these signals so that they can see if you're the good fit for the team and the culture of a company you are applying at. So yeah, mostly these three categories of questions for any university student can be expected.
Okay, sir. The next question is, what are the skills, what are the list of skills required to crack the interview? And after that, what are the list of skills required to work in the company as a software engineer?
Yes, I say this line, which I'm gonna say to a lot of people, and they generally laugh about it. I say to crack an interview, you need to be a good programmer, and to sustain in the company, you need to be a good engineer. And I can elaborate on that part. That most of the interviews, at least for entry level professionals, are around their programming skills, their thought process, their thinking, right? There's only so much signal which people can get from anyone graduating from a university. So they are just looking for sharp minds who can think about solving problems algorithmically and can come up with efficient solutions for it, right? So you just need to be a good programmer, have some good projects, and just need to be keen and enthusiastic about learning new stuff. And if you can show something like that in a interview, it usually is a yes. However, once you join a company, there are a lot of other factors that come into the picture. How good of a team player you are. Maybe you have done a lot of projects individually, or your internships were solo projects. But when you come to a company, team fit is a big thing, on how others are able to collaborate with you, if you are able to help other people or not. So these factors start coming into the picture. And then as you progress in your experience, it's not just the programming skills that matter, but also your design skills. So if, let's say, I say design YouTube, a system like YouTube for me, there are a plethora of technologies, distributed systems that come into the picture at that point. So you need to be familiar with operating systems, databases, cache, load balancers, and a lot of distributed technologies that can help you develop a system like this. And while you're thinking about this, the coding part happens only later when you start implementing something like that. So from junior engineers, it's mostly around producing good quality of code. Actually, yes, quality of code is something which also matters a lot. I know a lot of computer programmers, they'll just write a big main function with thousands of lines of code and use some bit masking, which is so hard to understand if someone else looks at it. But once you are in a company, you need to write code that's maintainable and readable. Let's say if you change teams or if you change companies, any new person can read and understand what you were trying to do there. So documentation, good quality of coding, all of that becomes very, very more important. And not just, sometimes we even trade off efficiency over it. We don't write the most efficient code, we write code which is more maintainable and
Mhm.
understandable by someone. So this is a big difference when between the two facets.
So while practicing, really, we should, have the habit of writing good codes, efficient codes.
I would say so. At least I can talk about Facebook for that matter. One of the signals which we capture in our coding interviews is also the quality of code. That let's say if you have a big algorithm, are you able to decouple some smaller parts of logic into a separate method, and are able to properly name it. And let's say if you're able to come up with small structures or classes that can encapsulate some behavior or something. So this is some signal which we do capture. Not so much, let's say, the priority for it really increases as you get more experience in the industry. uh, but yeah, we still look for it.
Okay, okay. The second question is, Oh, wait. While doing competitive programming, what quality to look in others forming teams?
What quality look for? Sorry.
In others while forming teams.
I think compatibility is very important while forming teams. As I said in a small example, my team particularly had someone who was a very good tester. So there's a, I think I'm not sure about hash code, but in ACM ICPC there's a penalty for every time applying submitting code that fails in some cases. So every time we are coming up with a solution, we need to really test it if it works on all sort of corner cases and edge cases. So my team had one person who was really good in coming up with the test cases and like really challenging every algorithm that you say, just because it would fail on something. The other one was very fast coder. So actually, I'm not sure if in Hashcode you can do parallel submissions, but at least in ICPC there was only one portal, so you only have one laptop and one session to write your code and submit stuff from. So you can't be submitting code, in parallel, everyone. So we chose someone that, it was not that it was the only quality that person had, that he was a fast coder. Of course, there are other qualities which I'll touch upon in a minute. And I generally was someone who was very well averse about different data structures and algorithms. So I was trying to formulate that, given any open-ended question, what is something that we can apply from the bank of knowledge which we already have. Given said that, I think all the team members should be very well prepared in all the algorithms possible. There's a bunch of material that you can find about competitive programming, which is normally not touched upon. Some trivial mathematics formulas, some combinatorics formulas. There are some trivial graph algorithms like min flow max cut, something like that. Is something that you need to be very well efficient with. So of course, I think teamwork plays a lot more sense there, because all of us were quite eager to always practice any new algorithm that one of us will find, and then share it with the other so that they can also practice that and solve some questions about it. So I think enthusiasm and passion is something that's, if it's commonly shared between everyone in the team, that is usually quite helpful. If someone is not so much interested and the other two people or three people are doing most of the work, then it kind of brings the morale down. So that is something I think definitely look out for. Otherwise, just see what is something that is missing in you. I think no one in this world is perfect and has all the qualities of a good software engineer or of a good programmer. So see what is missing in you and what you can get complemented by having someone in your team. If you fill in most of the gaps by having three very different people who have strengths in very different areas, I think that makes a perfect team usually.
Yes, finding person with the qualities that you don't have is really
Yeah,
nice.
or let's say you're weak at, or you get impatient, because I usually get impatient and then sometimes start submitting solutions, but I know someone will stop me from
Mm.
doing that because they are very good in testing. So
Okay. So our next question is, how has Web 3.0 changed the Meta company and how it opens up opportunity for Indian students?
well, I don't think Web 3.0 has changed a lot in the Meta company. This is something that is still being discussed right now, and I don't think it it has probably anything to do with any sort of opportunities. Of course, Web 3.0 has not, at least from what I know, I might be wrong, might be outdated, but it hasn't really set up a market of its own. It is probably catching up lately, but again, I might be the wrong person to ask this question because I haven't been following this subject a lot closely lately. But from what I can see at Facebook, hasn't really changed anything. And irrespective of that, the opportunities for Indian students are abundant, even at the current stage, thanks to a lot of alumni and uh, lot of base that we have in probably all the fan companies of Indians, that it never ceases to give opportunity for any Indian student.
Okay, sir. The next question is, did you compete in Hacker Cup? What was your experience or any tips for the students who are preparing for it?
Unfortunately, I didn't compete in Hacker Cup. I did Code Jam, Google's Code Jam, because back then I was interviewing for Google, and Code Jam was one way on how you could do it. I'm forgetting there was another competition at that time that was specifically for securing interview calls by Google. I'm completely forgetting it. So yeah, I don't have experience for Hacker Cup, but anything, but still I can share my other experience with other stuff and other tips for students. I think one thing is very important, especially for solo competitions like Hacker Cup, Code Jam, and things like that. Is since you're all by yourself, you need to have a lot more focus on getting the things right in the first attempt. Most of the times you get nervous and then you forget what thing to apply or how to do it, and then you start coming up with rash algorithms and start submitting incorrect answers. So the first tip that I think a lot of people can follow is practice a lot of different types of questions and see if you can come up with the exact code for it. A lot of times, at least that's what happened to me back then, is I used to see a problem. Let's say if I could not solve it, I just used to read what was the solution after the contest was over, and never write it on my own, because every time you read someone's solution or see someone's algorithm, you get 50% of it, but only when you write it on your its own and see if you are able to really code it out in a stipulated time and cover all the corner cases. That's the only time when you get 100% of it. So I think the first step and the most important is, anything you come across that's new to you, always code it out on your own and time box it, because these contests are mostly time based. At least I think Code Jam was running for one whole day, so that was not really a lot more time based. But but still quite important, at least for like ICPC contests and even for hash code. I think because the time is limited, you need to really see if you can produce it in the most optimum time. The second tip is, there are a lot of algorithms which have a lot of verbose code attached to it, and then there's a very shorter version of it. So it's very interesting thing that helped me and some of the people I know, is on how to write shorter code for longer algorithms. This is sometimes possible by using a bit mask. This is sometimes possible by using different data structure. Let's say some people will use segment trees, some people will use a binary index tree. So watch out for things that will reduce the amount of code you will write, because this will help in two things. One, you will be able to write shorter and code faster, and two, there will be lesser things to test and there are lesser chances of things going wrong in your code if it's more shorter. So yeah, that's something you can Google the tips for Hacker Cup and you'll find others as well. But these are the two most important things for me.
Okay, hope the question is answered. The next question is, sir, can we talk about your Facebook interview or any particular topic that Facebook recruiters look for?
So my Facebook interview was when I had already 3 years of experience. So it would be a bit different from what university graduates would usually see in their level. But there are some common parts, so I can touch upon that. First of all, there will be a screening round, which will involve 2 coding questions in 45 minutes. The questions are not very hard, right? But there are 3 things which recruiters will look out for, or let's say the interviewers who are making the judgment would look out for. One, since the questions are not hard, they would expect you to come up with efficient solutions, ask without much hints. It's very different from Google, because in Google the questions are generally harder. So some hints by the interviewer is fine and it's acceptable. But let's say if the question is not very hard, they probably will not prefer giving a lot of hints because it's not very hard in the first place. The second thing, they would expect bug-free code as much as possible. So if you're writing binary search or breadth first search, anything like that, try to produce as correct code as possible in the first attempt. And they if the interviewer is pinpointing explicitly some of the mistakes, it's fine. If it's a lot of mistakes, then it's a red flag for for the decision to not go in your favor. And the last thing, as I briefly touched upon, was the code quality. If you are able to write something that's more readable and understandable, and you keep the interviewer in loop by being communicative about it, then it's a good signal that is captured by it. And once you clear the screening round, you go to the phase of on-site rounds. The on-site rounds generally consist of 3 to 4 rounds, depending on your level, where 2 rounds will be about again coding. The data structures and algorithms that are covered are generally trees, binary search, greedy, recursion, backtracking, simple graph algorithms like DFS and BFS. And so yeah, basically everything except for the hard problems of graph and dynamic programming. So you can think about that. And again, the format is pretty similar: 45 minutes, 2 coding questions, and it's just the same method to judge upon. If you are more experienced, there will be one system design round where you'll be expected to design a system and come up with the architecture about it. But at junior levels, like say after university, that round is not usually done. The only round that happens apart from coding is the behavior or the fit round, where there will be questions about your projects, about your previous internships, about the things that you like doing, things you don't enjoy doing, and things you want to improve in yourself, what are your strengths, weaknesses. And there, I think being very honest usually helps. If you try to come up with answers and see if you can fool the other person, that usually doesn't work. The people who are taking these rounds are quite smart and experienced. So being as honest and open is something that's very advisable. And the second part of the question is any particular topic that recruiters look out for. I think this is on recruiters are there only for the resume screening, so they don't have any say after you go for interviews, because after that it's just the interviewers who make the call. But the recruiters usually look out for, as I said, some good internship experiences or some good achievement like ICPC Hacker Cup, Code Jam ranks, or some research papers or GSOC open source contributions and things like that.
Okay. So our second question is, sir, what did you specially did in your first year, second year, and third year respectively?
It seems like this person wants to know me quite well. Um, yes, I think in my first year, I was mostly doing competitive programming. Code Chef and Spotch were the 2 platforms I was mostly interested in. Towards the second year, I started putting some amount of my time in the machine learning projects. I was quite interested in data mining and AI. So I started doing some projects, and still I was involved in a bit of computer programming. Started participating in ICPC contests from my university. Towards the third year, I already had my internship secured at Amazon. So that gave me a bit of time to explore other things that I wanted to do. So I tried my hands at more concrete machine learning, deep learning projects at that time. And I started doing some more courses around ML, AI, and stuff like that. And my computer programming time that I was living there reduced a bit. I was still active on Code Forces that time with a bunch of my friends who were in my CPC team. But yes, it was mostly around projects, because I think college time is the best where you can explore a lot of different things. Once you are in a company, you will probably end up doing very limited amount of work that is done by the team or done by the company. University days are the best to try and explore as many things as possible. So yeah, I think if the question was about what you should do, it's just explore as much as you can. Try open source, try different projects, Android, web development, whatnot. Yeah, I did some web development as well in my first year. I did not like it.
Okay, so there is a question: is competitive programming necessary for interviews, or you can be a developer as well?
It's not necessary. It's usually helpful. So if you're good at competitive programming, that gives you an edge in doing the problems efficiently in interviews. Definitely, but it's not a must. So there are tons of other platforms like Lead Code, Geeks, and stuff like that, where you get a bunch of questions about companies. You can prepare specifically for interviews. As I said, competitive programming for me is a sport, which I enjoy doing. It was never a prerequisite to crack interviews. So keep these things separately as much as possible.
Sir, how did you prepare for Code Gem? Share your experience, please.
How to prepare for code jam? Nothing different actually. It's just, as I said, it's just doing practice on Spot, Code Forces, Code Chef, doing multiple contests, trying different algorithms, researchers, and yes, learning as anything new as I can, and just preparing it like to write code as fast as possible and as free. I probably need to run for something. I don't know if we still have time for the session.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
We will be
Yeah.
ending it within 5 or more minutes. Do you have
Uh,
time?
yeah, I think I probably would have to run. Sorry for that. But yes, I think I can probably drop my LinkedIn link or
Okay.
and my email as well. So if there are any more questions, I will probably be happy to take them offline.
Okay, sir. So, audience member, if you have any other questions, you can simply ask them. Contact sir at LinkedIn. We will be sharing the links with you as well. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your precious time and helping us so much. Maybe this is very helpful for all of us. We have learned many new things. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Diksha. And yeah, it was a pleasure being here. And yes, open to any questions. Just let me know on LinkedIn or on email. I'll drop it to the organizers and they can share it later.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, then.
With this, I would like to just tell you about our hash code. Our hash code session going on, where you can join our Discord and also visit our website and get your team at Discord for hash code 2022, and also get many other things that will be beneficial for you in future as well. So the link is dropped in the question answer section. You guys can go to the website as well. And thank you so much for